Thank you so much for coming and doing this with me today. I really appreciate it. So my name is Chris. I'm the academic advisor in the Institute of Indigenous Learning. You know this. Today, you and I are going to talk about who you are and what you do and kind of how we work together. You and I have done a lot of things in the past. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what that might mean for our students now and moving forward. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
So thank you, first of all, for doing this. I think it's important to obviously get the information to students, so I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Leah, and I am Fanshawe Sexual Violence Prevention Advisor, which is a very long title, but doesn't really describe what I do, I think. So
tell me about like what your title actually means, what you do on a day-to-day.
So my job at the college is to support any student who's experienced any type of gender-based violence, either before they come to Fanshawe or when they're a student with us. And what does gender-based violence mean? It's any type of violence that is perpetrated against someone based on their gender or sexuality. And so common forms of gender-based violence might be sexual assault, intimate partner violence, homophobia, transphobia. It's a range of different acts. And so just to break the title down a bit, and what the support actually looks like, I think it's a good opportunity for us to chat about how different it actually looks for every student. So there is set things that I obviously do for students, but this type of violence is really individual, and how we decide to heal and move forward when something like this has happened to us is also a really individual process. Sexual violence isn't about sex, it's about power and control, and so we're always trying to put the power and control back in the hands of the survivor to decide what they want to do next. So when it comes to our relationship, we've really supported students, I think, in terms of sometimes when they bring instances of violence forward to us, it's how can we academically support them. When something's obviously happened to you, it's really hard to focus on maybe all of the other stress and pressure that's put on you academically. And so we want to make sure that you have the space and time to look after your healing and your safety and wellness first. And so you and I work really hard to make sure that students don't have to tell their professors what's going on in their lives to get those academic accommodations, whether that be more time to do assignments or to do a test or whatever that may look like. So I think the academic piece is probably a big piece, putting the pause button on some of that so that we can do some of the other things. The other pieces of support may be connecting students with the counseling supports either in their own community or at the college if that's something they're interested in accessing, because the counseling is included in their student fees. And so giving students all the options for counseling that are available to them so they can pick the option that's best for them if they're interested. We also chat to students about what their legal and reporting options are. So if they want to report what happened on campus to Fanshawe Campus Security, we would help with that process and explaining what that looks like. And then you and I also have sat in with students and supported students through that process of reporting, because that can be very scary for a lot of people. And it's also not the option forward for everyone. So again, like healing and justice looks different for every person. And sometimes we hear a lot about that you have to report to make what happened real. And that's really not the case. For some people, reporting is not the way forward. It's getting the other supports like the counseling or the support through the center or through the institute, as well as maybe help with some of the academic stuff. If it's something that's happened that's caused physical injury, we also help with helping students know what their medical options are and how to access that care in the community as well. And those are kind of just the overarching support pieces. But I think examples of how we've supported students have looked really individual.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, like you said earlier, it really depends on what the student is going through, what that looked like for them, why they're accessing the service, and what they want when they're moving forward, right? I mean, whether that's supporting them, as they go to hospital to do some of the work there, or through counseling or reporting to police if they want, or security. I mean, and in the past, it's been helping a student get home you know, so that they can be with their family and not have to deal with, you know, a new or old trauma while they're away at school for the first time. You know, that can be too much. So yeah, it's really supporting them where they're at, I think, meeting them with what they need, what they want. And if you're not sure, I think you do a really good job of helping students kind of suss out exactly what it is they might need to be successful.
Thanks. I think something we should mention too is that students don't have to tell us what's happened. They don't have to come to me and or to yourself and say, this is the violence that I've experienced, and give the full disclosure and the details. We can support students without having any of that information, because like you said, it's just about providing those options and making sure, you know, that knowledge piece is power, like knowing what my options are, then I can make the choices that are best for me. And we have no pull or desire to push anyone in any direction. We just want to support them with the decision that's best for them. And especially the piece about getting connected back to family or back to community if this is not your home community is a big piece, and there is ways that we support students with that as well financially. And I think sometimes if you have to make the decision between like paying your rent or going home to see your family when something has happened, that's a really difficult decision. And so we try to help navigate some of those pieces and support with those pieces as well.
Yeah, well, and that can be such a really healing piece for people, is especially if you're not from a local community, is being able to go home and sit with your elders and do ceremony. That's really important, you know, if that's something that is healing for you, you know. So yeah, that's been a big piece in the past for certain individuals we've worked with, and it's been really good. And I think at the end of the day, you know, like you're here at college, we want you to do well at school. I think that's what everybody comes for.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, things get in the way, right? And so we want to make sure that whatever support you need, you're going to get, and hopefully we can turn the academics around. And if not, there's also some things that we can do to kind of make that right. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I think definitely for some students it's, you mean about if they were to make the report, or if they were, or academically if we're...
Yeah, if school became too much for them, you know?
Yeah, so if something happens to you while you're a student with us, it's never your fault. And so we don't really believe, obviously, that you should be held, you know, accountable and for those pieces, even if that means in a financial way. So a lot of the time it's helping students sometimes get some of that funding back, or register for a different time if they need to hit that pause button. And I know that can be a really difficult decision, because there's so many hopes and dreams of why we come to college and what that means, not just when you're at college, but then maybe the job that you'll get when you leave college and what that means for future employment and finances. And so we really want to support students with, if you have to take the break and you need to do that for what's best for your well-being, then we'll easily, you know, help you as easy as possible to transition back, or whatever that process may look like. I want to mention as well that I think part of what makes our relationship really strong is that we also recognize that, you know, well, not every person wants to go into like a counseling office to receive services, and there's maybe different spaces that feel more comfortable to access. And so we really meet students where they're at, and if it's more comfortable to have that contact in the past when we were in person, in the institute or somewhere else in the college that's less formal, then that's something we can do. Our concern is not the formal process of where you get the support, it's how we get the support to you. And I recognize as a white person as well that also asking for trust, and from any of my clients, I'm asking for trust in being welcomed into sometimes the most traumatic instance of someone's life. And so being able to have that on your own terms is really important. And so I want students to know there's flexibility in meeting them in the space that feels best for them as well.
Well, and something that I've really appreciated working with you with is your willingness to be that kind of flexible. You know, it's not always comfortable for Indigenous students to reach out to someone who's not Indigenous. And so I feel really fortunate to actually have you at the college, because I've never had a situation where I've sent a student to you or brought you in with a student after a disclosure and felt bad about it. There's never been a time where I've, sometimes I worry about sending students places, but I've never worried about sending a student to you, because you've always been so trauma informed and never any racial incidents or anything like that. And so that's a really big piece for me. Yeah. And I think for students too, is for me to be able to recommend you so highly. And so I always do if a student comes with, like you said, whether it's historical abuse or issues there or current, then yeah, it's always really nice to be able to send a student to you and not have to worry about, that aspect of it, of their ability to get the support, because I know you'll give it to them, which is great.
I appreciate that. I think our collective support of students, that if as students reach out to me for the support, it doesn't mean that you're not part of that if that's what they want, and that working together, one person sometimes can't offer all the things, and I can't offer all the things in the position I am and the positionality of who I am as a person either. And so being aware that, sometimes it takes a few of us to support someone and bring those pieces together. Also, just in the current climate that we're in, we know a lot of us are working from home, and that creates some situations around intimate partner violence, or individuals being stuck at home with someone that maybe is not safe. And so the pieces around how we support those students too, as well as acknowledging that sometimes there's children involved, and it might be housing stuff might be the main priority, or basic needs stuff might be the main priority. And so students should be aware that it's not just always about here's the counseling and here's the reporting options. It's we sometimes can't even look at those things if our basic needs aren't met or we're not in a safe space. So there's a lot of processes that we can support students with if they have to break a lease, or if they need an emergency housing situation or things like that. And sometimes when you hear sexual violence, you don't think about those pieces of gender-based violence. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and something else that I know you've supported students with in the past isn't just that physical piece of it too, but it can also be cyber violence as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so not that cyber violence wasn't happening before, but now everything's online. Yeah. So a lot of the things that we're hearing about, there's an increase in what people are being subjected to online. We also know that sexual violence doesn't just exist as this one thing. There's intersections. And so when I talk about queer identity and homophobia and transphobia and the intersection of that and sexism, or the intersection of racism and sexism, that there's multi-layered pieces. And so when people come forward, sometimes they're not just reporting on this one thing. There's pieces that are bigger. And as classes move online, we do and have supported many students that, even if it's not a Fanshawe platform, say for example, some students use a Discord server or a different way of communicating, or they have a Facebook group for their class, and a peer might make a comment towards another student, and the student might think, oh, I can't say or do anything about that because it didn't happen in a physical space, but that's actually not true. Our sexual violence policy covers any type of sexual violence that takes place in any space. It doesn't have to be a physical space. So I appreciate you bringing that, because I think it's a really big thing now. Not that it wasn't before, but definitely it's amplified. And so if students are experiencing any type of harassment, discrimination, or sexual violence online, we can still provide different outlets and options for them. There's always options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for talking about that. I do think it's super relevant right now. And just with younger generations too. I mean, you spend so much of your life online, that it does become, a really great tool, but can also be a place where it becomes unsafe. So yeah. And then as far as because you can support students from any campus.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so now we know if we're all kind of back in our homes, so that means we're scattered all over the place. So even before all of the changes have happened in the last year, you and I would travel to the regional campuses. So
it was great.
It was great, yeah. It was great to have that kind of face-to-face connection with people again. Like, it can be really scary to look at a card and think like, oh, there's this service, but I don't know who the heck this person is, and so I'm not going to reach out to them. And so we would travel, yourself and I, Chris, to St. Thomas or Woodstock or Clinton or Simcoe, and connect with students on those campuses and let them know that just because you're not a Fanshawe student in London doesn't mean that you don't have access to the same supports.
We care about you even if you're somewhere else.
Yes, exactly. And it was good, I think, for us too to get a better sense of what was happening in those communities and what maybe what issues look different for students in Simcoe or Woodstock or St. Thomas than look different at even the Oxford campus or the downtown campus in London. And so any Fanshawe student, no matter where you are in Canada, can access these supports. And am I an expert in every area of the region? Absolutely not. I will never claim to be, but whatever I don't know, I will find out for you. And that's always my commitment to students, is that there is always going to be individual specific supports in your community. And so I'll take the lead from you as to what you want those supports to look like, and then help you find the service that fits best.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that lines up so well with kind of the Institute of Indigenous Learning, is because we are located in that Oxford, London campus, but we also support students from all over the place, right? So it's been really nice in the past to travel around with you and get to meet other students and let them know that, you know, even though we're not there physically, we can be, if you let us know that you want us. And you and I have done that and traveled around and met with students in other places too, which, you know, so that's been really good.
Really good. Yeah, experiences of gender-based violence can be so isolating, especially, you know, if we don't want people in our communities to know what's happening or going on, or if we're worried about like backlash or retaliation. There can be like so many reasons that it might not be safe to tell people that we love and care about even what's going on. And so for students to know that there's also like that this is a confidential source, so, you know, they don't have to have any of the information that they share with us leave the space that they share it with us in. And sometimes I know there's a fear around, will this get back to anyone that I know, or what will you have to share? And there is confidentiality in what you share with us, and that we will keep it private.
Yeah, and I mean, in case that's a fear for some of students, I know sometimes it can be challenging if the person you're working with is from your local community. So I'm Métis, my family community is from Drummond Island and Penetanguishene, so not local. I didn't grow up here, so while I have Indigenous friends, you know, that are local, that it's not my community, and so I'm probably not related to you. So it's not going to get back to anyone that you know, even if, you know, I didn't have that confidentiality agreement. You know, so. And of course you do as well. So that information will stay with us, and it would only be shared with the student's permission to kind of further, you know, their needs, get them where they need to go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, students as well, for how you may support someone in your life, because that comes up a lot too. I have a family member or a friend, or, you know, someone in my community that I know is experiencing this and I don't know how to support them, or I don't know what I can do. I have a lot of students that reach out even just to ask some of those questions, because sometimes I'm not the person, or you're not the person that they want to share or come to. And so it's that passing of knowledge and information to someone that can then give it to the person. And so if students have questions in that way as well about how to support someone in their life, we're open to providing support in that way too.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, like if a student comes and discloses to me, or, you know, mentions to me that this is something that they want to talk about, I wouldn't just pass you off to Leah.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so that would be a conversation that we would have if you want to take that step. So I'm not like obligated to tell Leah.
No.
And same thing, you know, if you're an Indigenous student and you connect directly with Leah isn't necessarily going to come and tell me,
No.
because that's not how it works. There would have to be some permissions in place for that. So it doesn't necessarily go anywhere. It's just a partnership that has worked in the past for some students.
Yes.
And so kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah. If you're looking for both the supports or you want them individually, and sometimes I know that has been the case, or they maybe we're the first point of contact, but the referral is to the other person. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just whatever you're looking for. And if you're unsure, it's okay to come and ask questions as well. There's no pressure or expectation about what will happen. But yeah, just again, having that understanding and knowledge of what the options are. And sometimes when we're in these situations, I know it can feel like we have no options, because most of us don't know what's available to us in certain situations until we're in the situation. And so that's why we exist, to be able to provide that, and hopefully to really give the student the things that they need to care for their well-being and their safety. And I think that although we work at an academic institution, and academics and school is important, more importantly is someone's wellness and safety, and that's kind of the most important thing that we attend to before anything else.
Yeah, because school will always be there.
Always.
And we want to make sure that you're ready, like students are ready to be there when they're here with us. So yeah, taking care of the whole person before the schooling.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the best way to get in touch with me in the Institute of Indigenous Learning would be through email, and I'm thinking maybe we'll include that in the description below the video. And if you're not sure if it's me that you want to talk to or somebody else in the Institute, you can always reach out to Holly, who's our customer service person. She's lovely. She'll make sure you get to the right place. And then what would be the best way for students to get in touch with you right now?
So right now students can email me as well. It's probably the quickest way to get in touch, and we can either communicate through email or can set up a phone call if that's more comfortable, and go from there. So I think I just want to mention as well, lastly, that this program is based in the belief of survivors, and so every person that accesses service, we believe and support them. This isn't a place where we're deciding if this happened or not. If you told us this happened, it happened, and there's just not a lot of places in our world that are very understanding or supportive of people that have experienced gender-based violence. And so I want to just clearly say that piece, that you will be believed and you will be supported in the way that you want to be supported.
Yeah, and that's really important, right? It's not our role to figure it all out, and cast judgment. That's not what it's about. It's about the support piece. Yeah. And then if students want to get a hold of you, I mean, I know a lot of students have really been liking the phone calls lately. That's something that I do as well, and I know I can do Zoom, but I know there's a lot of screen fatigue.
Yes.
So
for all of us.
Yes, for everybody. But yeah, so that's also an option, because I know doing some of the virtual work that we're doing can be weird for some students, because there's a little bit of a physical and emotional distance that can be felt that way. So I know, I'm pretty flexible about meeting students the way that they want to be met. I'm sure you are too.
Yes.
So yeah, if you have a preference for how you connect, I mean, you can just let us know, and we'll do our absolute best to accommodate that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming and doing this with me. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I think the only way we can really talk about what we're doing is by actually giving our faces to students, and that's really hard right now. Where we're working. So I appreciate the opportunity too. Thanks.
Yeah.